start the panel now. The topic of the panel today is what is the future of DeFi derivatives and leverage and real-world assets? We have thought leaders in this space from every part of DeFi, and I'm really, really excited to moderate this panel today. A few member change. So I will be moderating. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cega. And then Kenji Mizusada is the head of markets from Secured Finance, who will be talking on behalf of Secured Finance. So maybe we'll get started with the first topic of the day. DeFi is obviously a little smaller than it was last year. So who are the main users in DeFi right now? How would you segment the user demographics? And when do you think the next wave of adoption will happen? So maybe we can start with Richard.
Sure. Maybe I'll start, and I feel like you guys will add on to it. So I think the major thing for a lot of the DeFi users is, like, over the last 2 years, when we started, there were a lot of DeFi protocols that were giving like really high interest rates. So, you know, you could farm it and get like over 100% APY, sometimes over 1,000%. And I see decent laughing, but like with Olympus, it was over 100,000%, and then over 10,000%. And then once it got to over 1,000%, we're like, whatever, it's 1,000%. I don't need to touch this. I need to move on. So that's something that like everybody experiences, right? Like when you first come to Japan, you're like, wow, every single restaurant I go to is like the best restaurant ever. And then like hedonic adaptation happens, and it's like, well, this izakaya is like okay, but I've had a better izakaya. I could, you know, go to somewhere else to get a better izakaya. And that's basically what happened to DeFi, which is when it first came out, you know, with like Yerd and like farming compound and Curve, like people were still pretty new to it, so they just thought it was the best thing ever. And then now there's a lot more data points. So really, I think that's kind of like how I see the segments, which is people would like experience that whole cycle. They're a lot more discerning when it comes to like what the sources of yield are, for example. And then the newer users, they're like pretty scared because of things like Terra. So yeah, you know, that's sort of my initial thoughts on it.
Thanks, Victor. Yeah, the only thing I'll add is that, I mean, so as you mentioned earlier, right, like I think that a lot of the early users happened during a zero interest rates environment. So people were just looking for sources of yield, and any source of yield that was available to them that obviously they couldn't get in traditional finance because, once again, the interest rates were zero. I think that the users of today, right, in an environment where the interest rates have obviously gone up just drastically, are mostly users that have made a lot of money in crypto and that don't want to off-ramp it or simply can't off-ramp it, as well as the funds with like a mandate to generate yield in crypto, right? So that they have like a net, so market neutral funds, funds that are trying to like yield farm. And then also just, yeah, there is still some retail, but I think it's still a lot less than what we had last year. In my opinion, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think most of retail, at least during zero interest market, 0% interest was like great rate hunters, like it was trying to find the best yield. Now it's more stable users, hopefully ones that are interacting with really more participating governance, and that's cool over time. But I think just like product experience to all these ecosystems is not there. It's really hard to bridge over. Like you can like deposit from a SEX, well like in dYdX specifically, like if you can onboard to a centralized exchange, why are you going to make the next step to deposit your money to a DEX unless you really care about having self-custody and things that are just like not core right now? So I think it has, but it's like kind of like when DOS was a thing before like GUIs on the internet. Like the product experience isn't there. People don't know how to use these products. But eventually over time there'll be more retail users offboarding. But at dYdX we more see the institutional side. And I I was like mostly scared after what's happened, like the dominoes falling with the readers, that's the extra that institutional sentiment. It's going to take a huge step back. But I think it has to a big degree, but thankfully I think a lot of the institutions have scaled back a little bit, but most of the institutions trading in DeFi are still trading in DeFi. And that's from like traditional market makers, the largest ones like the traditional equity markets, to like the crypto native ones who are obviously still scaling up. But I think a lot of them know that the ones that are supplying liquidity now and earning like whether it's liquidity provided rewards and things like that in this market are the ones that are going to be the front runners when the market kind of picks back up. But yeah, I think like it's a huge issue for retail to onboard right now. So I think hopefully over time there's more user growth. I mean, the market cap of crypto is tiny compared to the market cap of finance and traditional markets. So yeah, I think it's mostly institutions now, and hopefully, and like community-driven retail, but hopefully all of retail starts to onboard for the next year.
Nothing to add. Nope. You guys talk too much about my story, everything. But the only I want to add is that, DeFi is still popular in places like developing country aiming for together. That's one of the driver, and that can be the one of the driver for the community as well. So how retail leverage those strong will to be rich is one successful criteria for DeFi. That's what I think.
Yeah, thank you for all your insights, and I completely agree. Like, if you look at the annual strategy of Coinbase this year, they were talking about focusing on the VIP users, and I think the current market environment has really shown this trend of retail users bartering away, and I think it is kind of a sentiment on echoing the market movements. So markets are down. I think retail is scared, and trust and security is more important than ever. So before we move on to the next topic, I would like everyone in the back to I think I'm getting text messages that it is a little hard to hear, so I would appreciate if everyone can quiet down. I think we all learned in school that when I count down, you should hush. So, going once, going twice. All right. So, second question. So we talked a lot about the user base right now and customer segments that are strong, customer segments that are weak. What about as a builder? So, as someone that works in a protocol, builds a product, what do you think is the biggest problem in DeFi? Maybe we'll start with Paul.
So yeah, I hinted at, sorry, I lost my voice. Yeah. It's like me losing my voice and people in the back. I'm not. Can everyone quiet it down, please? They like set people outside. Alright. Yeah, I think I said this before, but I think it's just generally like product experience in UX. I think a lot of these ecosystems aren't easy to onboard to. Like wallets aren't compatible. dYdX currently is not very compatible, but I think most on-chain products are. But I think over time, as retail is able to onboard the products easier, as user experience along these products grows, you won't only be monetary incentive, which I think it drives a lot of retail now, like trying to farm like 1,000% interest rates, but over time it will be people wanting to come because the product experience is better. And I think it's also a thing for institutions, like obviously they trade on the API, but institutions follow where retail flow is. So if the retail flow isn't on the DeFi protocols, they're not going to trade. So yeah, I think the main thing is user onboarding, just general product experience. Once that's improved, with protocols over time, I think there will be a lot of retail kind of onboarding to DeFi.
I guess the thing I'll add there is, I think one of the things, because we see a lot of projects every week, right? And I still see a lot of builders that are like embracing incrementalism. And like incrementalism, it works in the bull market. It's like, we're building unified V3, but like, we have a rabbit instead of a unicorn, and like, we have this one like extra feature that unified doesn't have. And that like works in the bull market because, you release it, and then like, people farm it, and then you launch the token, and then like everybody gets rich, right? Now like, in 2023, this like incremental approach, it doesn't work really well for users because it's still actually a lot of work to launch a project. And like, as a product person, you might say like, okay, like this is better than what's out there, like logically speaking. But users, they're basically comparing things on a very like rough scale. It's like, okay, like this thing is also just gonna give me an 8% interest rate. Like, what's the real difference here? So that's really like the main problem that I see like for builders is the bar is so much higher to make something like really different, right? Which is, I think like all the projects here, they're trying to like kind of not make some incremental thing that's, it's like, with one extra feature, but actually do something new. So.
Thanks. Yeah, and I totally agree. I mean, they kind of like your Teal's work, and one of the things that he does always say is, unless you have a 10x improvement over, incumbents, you're just simply not going to have enough wool to, create the paradigm shift. In my opinion, the biggest problem for builders in DeFi currently is the fact that finance is so heavily regulated. And, it's a good thing, but the fact that, so many companies I know, people that are doing, structured products, for example, and traditional finance, cannot touch anything in DeFi simply because there is no KYC or AML process. It's really sad to me because I do think that we have a system that is much more transparent, much more secure than a lot of the things that you might find in traditional finance. And yeah, so I think that regulatory clarity, right? And I'm not even talking about not having any regulation and just letting people do whatever they want, but having regulatory clarity and really starting to integrate with institutions that manage more funds on behalf of people would be huge for the industry and specifically DeFi.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I'm from traditional finance as well. I spent 14 years as a Goldman FX trader. So in terms of onboarding institutions, it's Compass parties regulation. And and also for as a building DeFi protocol, we need to survive this winter. And this, up until the market condition will be, bullish, it might keep going similar up and down instead of shifting range. That's what I personally think. And when it comes, it's not to the language, it's depending on the fact that we're asking you raise your brother. But anyways, the most important thing for crypto is, for me, is to find the utility of a project in token itself. Otherwise, next big bull run will not come.
Yeah, those are all really, really good points. And I think what resonated with me the most was when Richard mentioned incrementality. I think something that I saw in the last cycle that was very characteristic of DeFi is that people love forking, but forking is not innovation. Don't fork protocols and build it on a different chain. You're not gonna get TVL, and it's a waste of everyone's energy. So try to build something new and try to create something that no one else has created before, because that's what's going to accelerate the market. And yeah, I hope that everyone realizes that and tries to become more creative. So I think like next question is more, we talked about the consumers, we talked about the builders, but now like, what about the people around power? So what do you think is going to happen in the regulatory space, specifically for DeFi derivatives and DeFi like leverage products, yield products, and real world assets? I think this is a pretty hot topic, and maybe we can start with you, Kenji.
Thank you, Arisa. So yeah, regulation is one of also it's sweet. Let's say like in Hong Kong it's getting easier, while US is 3 stricter. So globally, we don't know the direction. It's geographically it's not the same at all. However, it's hard for institutional, like a traditional bank, to trade directly to the DeFi. One only hope we can have is that the intermediary second layer who can touch both DeFi and can face to traditional finance. That's like a custodial intermediary or whoever, let's say in central exchange. Like Goldman Sachs already have a fund in wherever the central exchange, I guess, and they already trade options against institutional clients. So how do they hedge is through the finance or whoever at the back end. Yeah, that's a potential we can find thus far.
Yeah, I think this is the billion-dollar question. So if you know, let me know. But I think it's like a shame that regulation is so unclear, like Mateo mentioned. I think that it's pushing a lot of institutions offshore, which is a shame. I think it's kind of stifling innovation in the space. I can't really say what I think the future is. Hopefully within the next 2 years, I mean, policy moves pretty slow, so I don't think we'd see like U.S. Congress kind of push anything for at least a year and a half, but like what it currently looks like. But yeah, I think there needs to be more regulatory clarity. dYdX actually just fired a head of policy, so we have people active on the Hill trying to lobby. But generally, I think that after what happened with FTX, policymakers are kind of like a little scared, and it definitely stifled policy there. But yeah, I think hopefully over time there'll be more regulatory clarity. Otherwise, like institutions won't interact with protocols. Like pretty much all institutions that trade on dYdX, we obviously don't allow U.S. users, so have offshore entities. So it's kind of just pushing everyone offshore, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I feel like there's basically a big shift from the west to the east, right? Like, like a lot of companies that we recently audited, I think they're actually just like U.S. founders, but they're like, in Singapore, or like, they went through YC, and now they're like in Hong Kong or something like that, right? So, and I think that's gonna keep continuing, where, in the east, like for example, like in Hong Kong, there's some people that are kind of like opening up regulation there, and so in crypto, people move really quick. It's like, once we see what's going on, everyone's like, all right, let's get on this, right? So it's like, my takeaway is basically like, I'm not really that worried about crypto, because in crypto, people just like move really quick, and people startups, it's like, they go to a hackathon, and then like 3 months later, they have a startup, and they raise the round, right? The only thing that's going to change is like, what countries benefit from this innovation? And, maybe like regulation in a cycle. So now, like, let's say the US is going to benefit less, and the East is going to benefit more. And then at some point, when like, there's just all these billion-dollar protocols that are in Singapore and Hong Kong, I think there's going to be a reverse shift, because, all that
economical is going to be very important for taking this. Yeah, so you guys have covered it pretty well. The only thing I'll add is that all change inevitably runs into legal troubles. All drastic change. You look at even the history of the biggest US startups, right? Uber, Travis Kalanick almost went to prison for 14 years because he was operating an unlicensed taxi cab service. PayPal founders are the exact same, almost all went to prison, right? It's eventually when you have a product that is better, that is superior, that is more transparent, that enables positive change, the laws and regulations eventually come around. And the only thing that we can do as builders is continue providing value to users and hope that regulators will notice that and come around.
Yeah, regulation is really tough, and I think, if anything can crush the stifle of growth of this industry, it is regulation at this point. I really believe that regulators in this space have the keenness to grow together. And I think good regulation is actually good for an industry. Like, it will build and bring more innovation. It will just push out the bad players. But I think some of the regulations that are currently being talked about in this space are actually less about building this framework for growth, but more about stopping something that could take over the market share of the existing industry. And I think that's when we have to be a little more careful about, what the intention and what the thought behind these regulatory processes are. So I'm not going to say which countries are doing what, but definitely agree with the fact that there's a gradient of how frameworks are being built between like the East and the West. I think the East is definitely focused on growth, and that's probably the reason why we have such a strong DeFi community in countries like Singapore and Hong Kong. So maybe we can do one or two more questions. We talked about like the users, the builders, and the regulations. What do you think? What about like on the more high level? Like, how do you think society will use DeFi, and specifically DeFi derivatives, in the next 10 years? So maybe we'll start with Matt.
Sure. So I think that there's two things really that we need to start thinking more about. Number one is cryptocurrency assets, right? So existing digital assets. I think that DeFi derivatives there are already starting to gain some traction, and eventually I could definitely see people hedging block space, just how people hedge commodities in the real world, right? But there's another completely different part, which is real world assets, and how people are going to be hedging or speculating on those is a completely different world that I don't think that we've seen happen yet in DeFi derivatives. So I think that there is a medium-term future where we tokenize many of the assets that exist in the real world, port them over to Ethereum, and trade them on Uniswap and DayPools, and etc. And one other thing I'll add is that the systems that we're currently building are so different from the existing traditional finance systems that some of the use cases that we'll see today in the traditional finance might be a small sliver of the actual use cases that constitute the volume in 5 years from now, right? Just like how when the internet was first created, it was mostly used for blocks and very static content. But as the early pioneers innovated and brought dynamic apps to the internet, a whole new segment of use cases was unlocked. So I think that right now we're in the static internet like phase, and who knows what will be created 5 years from now.
No? We'll go? Yeah. Let's bring back. So what was the topic? Oh, yeah. Yeah, the DeFi, especially DeFi and leverage, how it's related to the society in 10 years. I guess derivative covers too many things, including like interest rate swap, FX forward, or structure out everything. And we are still the 10 billion start era. Just started. We just born in DeFi as let's compare to the traditional finance. There's many products already, while in DeFi is only a few. I guess less than 1%, because especially, let's say, what we are building is rates market, interest rate. It needs to be, we need to have specific, reliable interest rate. Otherwise, we cannot structure many things. So after, we need the infrastructure before going more, productive, leverage products anyway. But in 5 years, 10 years, I guess it will be similar to TradFi. And many things will be bring into the DeFi leveraged product so that people can trade. Not only institutional pro trader, but everyone. That's what I think and I hope.
Yeah, I think it comes down to custody and access. I think that DeFi and democratizes finance pretty globally to trade most digital, any financial asset you need to onboard to a centralized exchange or a brokerage today. Requires KYC, requires an American passport, American brokerages. So having to be able to trade from any wallet is huge, because anyone can onboard any digital assets, and hopefully eventually, when there's enough liquidity, pretty much trade any asset, right? Because there's a lot of real-world assets, digital assets, etc. And then, yeah, the self-custody part is really important, because before crypto, there was no way to self-custody anything digital, right? The only way to self-custody stuff was either find physical things like paintings or houses, or like have cash, right? We are putting everything on a bank or a brokerage. So for the first time, we're able to self-custody something digitally, which is amazing. It opens up tons of opportunities. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how real-world assets start transitioning to DeFi. I think, so dYdX, we plan to launch this product. We haven't publicly announced this, but hopefully 6 months after launch, called permissionless market listing, where anyone can launch a perf market on any underlying asset. So whether it's traditional equities or real-world physical assets, as long as you have an oracle, you can then launch market on anything. And how liquidity works is for another time. But I think I'm really excited for how anyone, anywhere to trade anything in a self-custody way.
Yeah, just to follow up on the anyone, anywhere, I think the reason why I got into Web3 is because you can launch your app, and the moment you launch it, anywhere, anyone, anywhere in the world can use it. And that's not how platforms works. right? It's like if you launch a FinTech app in the US, only people in the US can use it. And so that's like the superpower. And then I think the other superpower is like, in DeFi, you can have people go to the hackathon and like startups will come out of it, and within like a couple months, they'll have like 50 million TVL. And that's also something that doesn't really happen in traditional finance. And so these things, they're like superpowers. And I basically feel like the world is roughly divided, or going to be divided into people that like prefer freedom and prefer having some of these things, and they're basically going to vote with their money. And you know, people like myself that prefer freedom, and maybe we like some things about the East and some things about the West, but like, you know, we'll have a bunch of our money in there. And so, in a sense, we're like forming our own like, you know, digital nation where it's just like an internet-based community, and we're going to have our own money and, you know, our own like protocols. And so I think those things are just like superpowers, and we basically can't ever lose them. It's just a matter of like how big the flag is.
Yeah, I think like very much like similar to the four of you mentioned. I think in the next 10 years, what's really going to happen is two things. It's adoption and abstraction. So the reason why I say those two words is because, one, I think adoption is going to be imminent. The reason why DeFi was created is so that a lot of the operations that was very costly in the middle is gone, and there's a lot more transparency. So in a lot of countries that don't have enough access to wealth management, wealth creation, economic freedom, the citizens of those places, the bankless, the unbanked, they're going to be able to have more economic freedom, and we're going to see more equalization of wealth across the different countries of the world. And mainly what Richard said about countries not even existing because there's going to be no economic system, I think all of that leads to a definitive adoption of DeFi. And then the second part is regarding abstraction. So I think in the next 10 years, you're not even going to realize that you're using DeFi in your day-to-day lives. And this is something I'm really excited about because just like how cashless payments was integrated in our day-to-day lives now, you go to a subway stop, you don't take out cash anymore, you're using your phone. And in the same way, that phone that you use to pay for your subway can actually be transacting in DeFi because now when you go to different countries and go on different countries' subway systems, you can use your same blockchain wallet. But you don't have to actually understand how distributed ledger technology works, or you don't have to understand what the different wallet technologies are. You're just able to use it in the same way that people today don't understand how TCP/IP works, but everyone uses the internet, and that's where I see the adoption going. So I know, you know, we're having some like audio issues, so maybe we'll have one last question. Last question. I'm just gonna make it a little fun and casual. What is your favorite DeFi protocol outside of your own? And also, what is your favorite Japanese food? I'll start with Matt.
Cool. Favorite DeFi protocol outside of my head. The original question was favorite DeFi protocol outside of everyone here. So thanks for that, Arissa, for hinting on Cega, which is I have money in Cega, so I obviously do like it, but I will say like I really love Uniswap. Uniswap, and there are like many different things to love about Uniswap. I think that, you know, we talk a lot about like protocols in DeFi, but a lot of protocols right now are not, you know, simple and immutable protocols that you can ship once and just like never touch again. And I think that the fact that Uniswap is this, you know, like immutable thing that is just there forever, that no one can ever mess with, is just on the blockchain. So as long as Ethereum exists, Uniswap will exist, is incredibly powerful, and yeah, just something that people should look up to. The second thing I'll say is that, we talked a little bit about incrementalism before, and, one of the things that Uniswap did incredibly well is that it really provided 2-10x improvements over its incumbents. Specifically, it provided the ability to provisionally list assets, right? So list 10x more assets than, Binance, Coinbase, and all centralized incumbents, but also list those assets 10x faster, amongst other firms. But so I think it meant two really fantastic things for me: immutability, the fact that it's at its core, a protocol is something that is just shipping once and you don't need that many improvements. And number two, the fact that it was very much a tax improvement. Favorite Japanese food? I'm just gonna give a salmon nigiri. Maybe fatty tuna nigiri. Yeah. I know it's kind of a pussy answer, but stick it to it. Favorite Japanese food?
I like the beef tongue, biltong. I'm a big fan. I literally got off the airplane. Oh, where's the nearest beef tongue restaurant? I need to get some. Yeah, so I've had beef tongue 3 times already since I got here. Favorite DeFi protocol? I think there's an unsung hero in DeFi, and it's 0x protocol. And I think probably by far my favorite protocol, because actually a lot of DeFi projects when they launch, they're actually just built on top of 0x. And it provides so many useful features. So, there we go.
Awesome. Favorite Japanese food is probably chufora, nigiri, or udons. Udons too. But yeah, I think my favorite protocol is probably some of the ones either working on MVP, because I think MVP is a new issue. One's started by Paradigm called Flashbots. They're launching a new chain soon, and the tech team's really great. And I think MVP is just generally a huge issue in trading to DeFi. I also think liquid staking is a huge issue. It's a huge solution to locked up staking. So I think liquid staking, pretty good innovation there. So those are probably my favorite DeFi protocols.
Thank you. My favorite Japanese food. I'm Japanese, but what I miss every food. I'm now living in Hong Kong. So the cost of the food is double or triple. Even a small 3 packs of natto is 5 times expensive in Hong Kong. So, I'm really happy to be here, and I'm sure I will be fat going back to Hong Kong anyway. So the protocol I like is Notional. It's a interest rate project. So basically, it's one of the competitor for secure finance. Right? They do challenge. They based on the compound. So try to make something new, which is a fixed income market. So they expand the maturity up to 1 year. That's fantastic. And what we are trying to solve is the different direction with them, because they are based on the promise, and they fix the interest rate card by themselves. But for us, we are trying to make all the spaces OTC trader-driven interest rate market. So that's my favorite.
Awesome. I guess to answer my section, so my favorite DeFi protocol maybe half a year ago was probably GMX. I was an avid trader, and I thought it was very interesting that they created an external vault that allowed for liquidity that helped users, especially retail, that wanted to take leverage, take it without the need for over collateralization. and you know, I'm all about capital efficiency. But actually, like I think some vertical that I'm like really interested in recently is probably Ondo. So I think Ondo, you know, as Kenji mentioned, it's really important that the market has risk-free interest rates. So like risk-free interest rate is the core metric that you use for literally building every financial product. And you know how to calculate risk-free interest rate is a forever question in DeFi derivatives. And I think risk-free interest rates in DeFi derivatives will come from partially traditional interest rates. And so if like OUSD tokens and like Plus Finance that is also owned by Ondo Finance takes off, I think their tokens are actually collateralized by real-world treasuries, which could create like a token level risk-free interest rate that people can build on top of. And I think that establishment will lead to a very large amount of other tokenized derivatives liquidity. So that's what I'm really excited about. And then my favorite Japanese food is, honestly, I love all Japanese food. Every time I come back, like I have a little bit of everything. But I don't know if anyone has had raw chicken, but raw chicken at izakayas is so good. They like prepare it really well. It's clean, it's yummy, it's chewy, it goes really well with ponzu. So hope you guys all take some knowledge home with you tonight. Some knowledge about DeFi, some new knowledge about Japanese food. Thank you so much for listening to our panel today. And yeah, there's still some more drinks left, some more food left. Yeah, please have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.